In 2012, you started working with Platinum Blonde as a monitor and guitar tech.
Yeah,
Would you consider that your first big break uh, on the live side of the music industry?
for sure. Yeah, that's when I really started traveling. Because before then, I was just working for Frontier Sound and Light for years prior. And it was just all Southern Ontario stuff, and basically setting up PA, running sound for like opening bands, or just being a system tech, just being an audio tech there to support the touring guys coming in, right? So out of that and out of the networking through all that, that's where I met sound guy John O'Sullivan for Platinum Blonde, and yeah, he asked if I'd go do a summer full of gigs for them. It was like 4 or 5 shows. It's like, yeah, think I'm busy. Like Frontier Sound Light was just slam crazy busy, but I was like, I can fit these in. It'll be fun to do. So I did that gig. Like it was like Canada Day 2000 whatever 12, yeah, and just down in Markham, so not far. And after the gig, the guys asked me if I'd just be their full time guy, right? And so going into the fall, and that's when they got really busy, and we started. It was more just weekends, but it was like every weekend for months, right? So yeah, it just that's when I kind of transferred into that, and it was like basically like 2 years of that, still doing production company stuff, but definitely the Platinum Blonde guys were that little catalyst, for me getting onto the touring circuit in Canada.
So I have some kind words sent in from Platinum Blonde drummer Dan Todd. So he says the most grounded, down to earth, kind-hearted, caring. No, this is a good quote. You should save this somewhere. I'll start again. The most grounded, down to earth, kind-hearted, caring, no nonsense, straight shooting tech I have ever worked with, and a superior family man. Dan has been there for me when it came to technical issues I didn't understand, and my pool issues I didn't understand either. Love you, bro, from Dan Todd, drummer, Platinum Blonde.
Dan's great. Yeah, we were pretty tight. Him and I would do a lot of the traveling together and stuff, and then pick up the principals there, Mark Holmes and Sergio Galli, right? And go off and do our gigs. Yeah, we spent a lot of time on the road. Dan's a great guy, great drummer, and yeah, always super nice, always super thankful. Like obviously, like in that quote that he just laid, he was always like that in person. So it's really nice to hear in writing, but he was always super super thankful. Which always just turns around to me wanting to work that much more for somebody. And people are kind and good people, right? You just want to work harder for them, and it just it reciprocates. It just kind of fuels back and forth. So yeah, thanks, Dan. That was a very nice quote.
So now is a good time to help out our listeners that aren't super familiar, if they're not very musical or they're not used to the technical side of music and live music. If we could maybe break down the various roles that there are. So in this case with Platinum Blonde, your role was monitor tech, sorry, monitors and guitar tech. Can you share what those two are? And then after that, we can talk about, what front of house is. People maybe don't know what that is. And the people that are lugging the equipment, just, I guess, different things to paint a clear picture of, it's usually not just one guy. There's like a whole crew that makes a live event happen.
Absolutely, right. And there's different scales, right? So let's say Platinum Blonde guys, I was kind of doubling up because me being a guitar player and an audio tech, right? And we were doing a little bit of a smaller circuit at the time. So, the lighting guy was also their TM, their front house guy, and then I was guitar tech and monitors, right? Just keep it down to a smaller crew a little bit. So with guitar tech, it's basically just making sure the guitars are kept in good shape, that the amps are kept in good shape, and all the electronics are running smooth, and that they're pedal board is all hooked up nicely and it's not going to fail, right? That's the thing, is just going through all the fail safe stuff, right? Changing strings on guitar makes sure the guitar is actually set up and nice and playable, for the musician, you know. And then on top of that, I'd run monitors, so it was basically, I think at the time we were just running the floor wedges. They weren't on the in ears yet. So I would just, have a mixer like a similar or exactly the same, even as the front of house mixer, but you'd be sending different mixes. So instead of just like the PA, like the tops and the subs and some outfills and infills, you'd have just individual stations of monitors, right? And each guy would get their own separate mix. So this monitor desk would be capable of all those separate mixes, and you guys get their custom mixes and make sure that they're hearing themselves okay for their performance. So for that band, I covered both. It was I don't suggest it being a one man thing in those two jobs, and as you get to that next level above, right, that job splits into two, right? So like take for instance a band like 3 Days Grace, I was just their monitor tech, and they'd have two guitar techs because there's too much going on, and it's when you're in an arena and those places need specific guys for the job, right? So yeah, that's the monitors and guitar tech, and then I'll.
So sorry, before you dive into the next thing. So with monitors, that's you are in charge of just the sound for the musicians on stage. So you want them to be able to hear the different instruments, to have the mix that they want to bring out their best performance. It's not the sound that the crowd is hearing, correct? This is just for our listeners to know that there's two different things going on there with the sound.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just for stage, right? So it's all those guys up on deck. And like I said, it's either wedge monitors, so they're faced up at them, or nowadays, like for quite a while now, mostly everybody's just doing the in-ears. So it's just the buds, little wireless pack and transmitter, and then the outputs, the console for the individual mixes are just going to that transmitter and going right into the guy's ears. And it's great because they can be anywhere on stage and it sounds exactly the same. You can add things into the monitor mixes like a reverb and delay, like you would on a recording and stuff. So they're hearing this lovely, spacious, big environment with a nice delay, and it's inspiring and uplifting and get you more into the show if you got a really good monitor tech, right? And knows how to put a really nice mix together.
Is there less chance for, say, feedback if there isn't the monitors blaring out too?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because all that monitors on stage, it's all just live level and live volume, right? So just think of that's going back into microphones, right? So you're feeding that back into the microphones that are into the sources going into the front of house mixer, and also when singers walking around, right, and they put their mic down on the ground, right, and pointing right into that speaker and squawk, right, you're gonna get that. So basically with in-ears, there's no feedback on stage. There's no real possibility of that other than a guitar player trying to get some feedback on purpose, doing the old Jimi Hendrix or whatever, right? So
are there any downsides to the in-ears?
I think the only thing I've ever heard from guys that I work with is like they can just feel a little isolated, and especially if they're used to monitors like on the ground, right? So that big, spacious environment and feeling free and open-eared, right? In like an arena or a big festival, you can lose that sensation a little bit. But actually, how we've, over the years, like people realize to actually get some crowd mics, condenser mics, and point them out at the crowd, right? And then blend that in to the in-ear mix, along with any reverbs and stuff and delays to create that environment. So these days with modern consoles and how good you can make things sound and plugins and outboard gear, it's just like I really don't hear anybody having much of a downside, other than if they've just been used to wedges over the years and they're just starting on ears now and trying to get used to it. But once they get used to it, it's like I couldn't go. There's no way they could go back.
So that's, we've talked about the monitors for the musicians to hear themselves on stage. We've talked about the guitar techs and the instrument techs. So now for front of house sound tech and for tour manager, maybe if you could break down those roles for our listeners.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the front of house and TM thing, that's been a role that's combined over the years because the job's become, I guess, a little bit more efficient. Of course, back in the 80s when they're having to get to a payphone and stuff and have their booklet and writing everything down on a typewriter to do day sheets and stuff, right? Like, it was a guy that would just be their TM and that's it, right? And this guy's booking flights and taking care of the crew and all that stuff. But
isn't it possible that there could be amazing live sound technicians, so front of house sound techs that are horrible with organization and logistics? Like, is that possible where there's a guy that's like, no, like I just want to do front of house?
Absolutely, right. And that's there's a lot of guys out there that won't TM, right? And to be honest, like I've been back and forth for years on it too, because it's a lot of work, which is fine. I'm not afraid of a lot of work. I'm not afraid of hard work, but it can get a little overwhelming at times for the main reason of that you've sometimes got to be in two places at once, sometimes three, right?
Ooh.
Because you got, someone that needs you over at the merch table to do some pricing, but your star's arriving, like your lead singer, but then you're at the console because you're putting your USB key in to get your file going to get your mix up and running, right? So that's where it can get difficult. I don't think the processes are that hard. Once you've gone into it and you're doing it, it remains hard because of trying to be in multiple places at once, and it can get a little stressy, right?
Yeah, we need technology to advance to the point where we have cloning for you or we have teleportation, I think.
That and many people have said that. And it's like we need three of you, right? So yeah, that's the only thing that makes it hard and makes it stressful is the multiple places at once and just getting a little bit piled up, But yeah, as far as just to compartmentalize and just go to front of house, that's out of the job, like all the touring jobs, that's my home base, and that's what I love the most, right? More so, say monitors, guitar teching, or TMing. When I'm doing front of house, and I think that it's the reward out of the day. You know what I mean? That hour and a half, or half an hour, whatever long the set is, right? That is definitely the reward. To have two, three, four, 10,000 people there that you're providing, the sonic quality of that performance for, having a good time. There's no feeling like that, especially if it's a band that you really dig. So I've been on bands that I like, and I've been on bands that I really like, right? So, of varying degrees, right? So when you're into a band and you're providing that service and everything's just firing all cylinders, it's a high. It's like a drug, and it's a wonderful feeling. And all that crazy hard work and running around all day is, definitely pays off at the end of the night.
Do you think with you being willing to be the tour manager as well as front of house that actually elevates you above other guys that just want to do front of house? Let's say all is equal as far as skill and whatever as a front of house, you can deliver the same goods, but one of them also can be the tour manager. Do you think that's an extra tool in the toolbox?
Absolutely. It's a really sought after position, especially right now after the pandemic, right? There's a lot of guys that decide not to tour manage because the world's really not quite back to normal. I do definitely I do find it more difficult to get things booked, like finding buses. The thing with flights is a nightmare right now. So being able to do that right now is definitely a sought after position, and and I'll keep doing it. For definitely for the time being. Yeah, so it's definitely an asset. Is it, I find TMing is a bit of for me, it's a byproduct that I don't mind doing to get to work with that specific band. If that's what they need, yes, I will TM, and because I can, easily do it. But my number one, for sure, I'm passionate just to do front of house sound. If I can, at some point just end up doing that, and while I get into my last little twilight before retirement, if I ever retire, I'll end up probably just being a sound guy for like 10 years, right? And just kind of slow it down a bit.
How frequently do audience members come and talk to you at the sound booth, and whether whether they want to say it sounds awesome, or there's some idiot that's like, I can't hear the guitar, or the vocals are too quiet? How often does that happen, or does it not happen very frequently?
It's happened now and again, not too much, right? But I get definitely more high fives after show when people are walking out, and I'm just cleaning up all my stuff and
Oh,
unplug.
that's good.
So that's a good thing, right? But you get the odd guy. It's just like, he was like, at the beer garden or something, right? That, and he's like, it sounds a little weird, and it's like, yeah, you want to get in front of the PA,
And you're super inebriated, so between
yeah,
it's always someone that's like super schmammered that's has the best ears in the world and tells
yeah,
you.
exactly, yeah, you're gonna get those people, and I'm pretty nice too. I just, sorry, bud, no, I'll work on that. I was in turn around, and have a good chuckle with the system tech or the lighting guy that's beside me, right? And just whatever, right? And just focus on my job. Sometimes I just don't even turn around. It's like someone go, "Hey, bud," right? And I'm working, like I am concentrating here. So yeah, it happens now and again. No skin off my back, that's for sure.